It's Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I just wanted to drop by because I just heard about Bob Weir passing on, and I don't talk about that much here because I do the Gen X metal scene. But after the military, really in the late '80s, I've done really nothing but follow and listen to Grateful Dead music, and I just want to stop by and say thank you to Bob Weir, or however that goes. You know, when Jerry died in 1985, I was living in Athens, Georgia, and I was at UGA at the time. And I remember walking into the house and somebody told me that Jerry had died. And I walked up and I had a massive tape collection in those days, about 2,000 hours or so, and maybe some more. I was doing Relics magazine trading and all that stuff. I was one of the big Jerry Garcia band holders at the time with like 700 or 800 hours. I don't know. Anyway, you can find that. But I remember I walked in and um, I don't even know how it is I got it, but I put on Bird Song. And, you know, because that line, all I know is something like a bird within her sang. Of course, the song's about Janice, but that's always been sort of the way that I looked at the Dead, that all I know is something like a bird within them sang for me the first time I ever even heard them play. From that time on, it was pretty much lockstep, Deadhead, to the point of, you know, like last week I had a song that I put on here last Saturday. It was inspired by Jerry Garcia, and I used the words of Robert Hunter to just because I didn't have any lyrics for it. I recorded that 25 years ago. But that rig that was played through, I was trying to emulate exactly the Jerry Garcia stage rig from the late '80s, and I had pretty much done that. That's why you see, well, not behind me now, but sometimes you see behind us on Gen X Transplant Bros Free Will Burning podcast, the trio, which is what Jerry used, and the Macintosh that I had at one time isn't in that photo. The photo that I have has the Marshall. But anyway, the rest of it, including the Stratocaster I have today that I talk about, I'm retrofitting it, trying to make it to emulate Wolf, the guitar Jerry played. But back to Bobby. Bobby was, he's a rock and roller of the band. You know, I mean, he was his quasi Elvis voice at times, and other times just googly eyed himself. And any interviews you see with him, it's always like, really, man, is this guy even really here? And it didn't matter. He didn't matter where he was. But when I heard the news a few minutes ago, I went back to my favorite, I think favorite all-time Grateful Dead song. I listened to Jack Straw. It was a 90s version of it, or maybe like 90, 89, when they were really hitting their stride. Well, actually, it was a Brent Midland version, so it would have been probably that. I mean, that era there. So when I came onto the Dead scene, I was in the military in '86, and I had it introduced to me. I was still playing in metal bands at the time, and somebody gave me a copy of Terrapin Station, and I listened to the CD as a friend of mine, Bill. I won't say names, but he was in the army with me. He was from Massachusetts, and I was just like, what the heck is going on with these songs? I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'd never heard anything like that. I was familiar with the Dead because my singer Danny, I've talked about this before, from Blitzkrieg in the early '80s, he defected from metal and went to the Grateful Dead. And at the time, I was like, why in the hell is he going and playing with this hippie band style or whatever it was? To me, it was like egregious, foul of the heavy metal world. They don't wear these. And so, but by the time I circled back around to it in '86, by the time I heard it, I was, metal had already changed, as you've heard us talk about. We didn't like the hairband stuff when all that came out. When Motley Crue came out, their second album, about that time, things started to fall apart with the way we played metal. Like the whole rule about never doing the finger stuff on the neck and all that. And we just pretty strict about that, although I did that in other bands because of my Randy Rhoads connection. But when I heard Bobby singing Throwing Stones, then like a year after that, because they come out with Touch of Grey, I was infatuated. I was like, what the heck is going on with this music? And then like on the same album, Jerry, with the way he does West LA and that funky thing, I was like, I was locked in right off the bat. And then I had a chance to see him while I was still in the military. And so that was great. And then when I got out of the military, I went literally from the army straight on Grateful Dead tour. Well, after about a year of piddling around trying to find odd jobs, but then I basically went on Grateful Dead tour for extended periods of time, including at one point for the entire year of all the Jerry, Bobby shows and everything. I went everywhere they went, including the Dead itself. But you know, as we lost Jerry, and then we recently lost Phil, Now Bob's gone. So, end of an era. But what I plan to do is release the music I have in my archive for the next month or so. And each time I'll talk a little bit about the dead there. Otherwise, I won't be talking about it on this channel because it's about metal and all of that. But, excuse me. That band. Thanks, Bobby. As Jerry would say, for a real good time. Take it easy, man.